The USS Dauntless cut through the Seriphus Nebula like a blade through silk, its sleek hull gleaming faintly against the swirling gas clouds that cloaked this remote stretch of space. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, eyes sharp and unyielding, her posture the calm amid the storm. The nebula's eerie hues painted the viewport in shifting greens and purples, an otherworldly backdrop for the quiet tension that gripped her crew. "Status report," she commanded, voice steady. Lieutenant Jalen, her tactical officer, flicked his fingers across the console, eyes scanning rapidly. "Convoy is holding formation. Sensors picking up intermittent Zarketh signatures, small patrols, likely scouts. No direct threats yet, Captain." Elena nodded. "Good. Keep scanners tight. This sector's a powder keg. The Seriphus Nebula isn't just pretty scenery, it's a choke point. Smugglers, pirates, and now the Zarketh." Her gaze hardened. "They're testing us." Jalen glanced up, brows furrowed. "Intelligence suggests they're confident. The Zarketh see us as inexperienced, a minor obstacle. Underestimating us will be their first mistake," Elena said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. The convoy of supply freighters, lumbering but vital, stretched behind the Dauntless. Human colonies on the outer rim depended on the steady stream of resources. Losing even one shipment could cripple defenses, stall growth, and embolden hostile forces. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like the ship's heavy armor plating. "Captain, incoming transmission, encrypted, high priority," Jalen announced. Elena tapped the console. The holographic comm panel flickered alive, displaying a terse message from Fleet Command. Asterisk. "Zarketh movements escalating near Seriphus. Expect engagement. Exercise caution, but be prepared to engage. Support en route." Asterisk. She exhaled slowly, tension coiling in her chest. "Inform the convoy commanders. Double all patrols. This isn't a drill." Her crew moved with practiced precision, voices clipped but calm. Elena took a moment to scan the bridge, a collection of faces focused yet unafraid. This was what she lived for, moments when every decision counted. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up rapid movement within the nebula's swirling mists. "Unidentified vessels, bearing down fast," Jalen said, voice tight. "Multiple contacts, Zarketh attack pattern Delta." Elena's jaw clenched. "Battle stations. Prepare to defend the convoy." The hum of the ship's engines deepened, and power surged through the weapon systems. Crew members slid into their positions, fingers flying over controls, eyes locked on the encroaching blips on the tactical display. Enemy vessels emerging from the gas clouds, 5 frigates and 2 destroyers, closing at high velocity, Jalen reported. Elena paced the bridge for a brief moment, mind calculating odds strategies. The Zarketh favored brute force and overwhelming firepower. But humanity had advantages: unpredictability, adaptability, and a refusal to yield. "Helm, take us deeper into the nebula," she ordered. "Use the gas clouds for cover. Sensors, feed me every detail on their formation." "Understood, Captain," the helmsman replied. The Dauntless veered into the shifting haze, the swirling gases muffling the stars beyond. A natural cloak, but risky. Sensor ranges dropped, visibility was limited. Still, Elena knew that where the Zarketh relied on numbers, the humans could exploit the environment. "Jalen, I want drone swarms prepped for reconnaissance and harassment," she said, voice cold with determination. "Deploy as soon as we're in position." Minutes passed like hours. Then, the void erupted with laser fire. "Shields at 40% on the starboard side," the communications officer shouted. "Return fire! Target their lead frigate!" Elena barked. The battle was brutal. Zarketh weaponry was brutal, pulses of energy hammering the Dauntless shields with relentless fury. But human crews countered with precision strikes, evasive maneuvers through asteroid debris, and carefully timed drone attacks that disrupted enemy formations. "Elena, their frigates are coordinating well. They expect us to fold," Jalen said, voice strained but focused. "Let them underestimate us. she shot back. We'll show them what resilience looks like. The convoy's smaller escorts, inspired by the dauntless example, engaged with renewed vigor. Freighters accelerated, weaving through the nebula as fighter craft provided close support. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the Dauntless. The ship lurched violently. Impact on the aft hull! Hull breach detected! Shouted the damage control officer. Elena steadied herself on the command chair. Seal compartments. Initiate emergency repairs. Jalen, divert power from non-essential systems to shields. The crew responded swiftly, the practiced efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Yet the battle was far from over. On the other side of the nebula, aboard the Zarkoth flagship, General Vrax Malkor observed the unfolding fight through his command console. His scaly face twisted in annoyance as the communications officer relayed reports. The humans are more stubborn than anticipated, Vrax growled. Send reinforcements. Crush them swiftly, this delay is unacceptable. His voice echoed coldly in the war room. They think their tricks will save them? They have no idea who they've provoked. Back on the Dauntless, Elena seized a brief lull to address her crew. Listen up! We're not just defending a convoy, we're defending the future of humanity's reach into the stars. Hold your lines, trust your training, and remember why we fight. Lieutenant Jalen approached, eyes alight with grim determination. Captain, drone swarms are ready. Deploy on your command. Elena nodded sharply. Now. Hit their flanks, disrupt their sensors. The tiny, fast-moving drones streaked into the battle, darting through the nebula's gas, their plasma pulses sowing chaos in the Zarkoth formations. Enemy vessels faltered, their coordination breaking. Excellent, Elena murmured. The Dauntless surged forward, rallying the convoy's remaining escorts. The Zarkoth attack, once confident, began to falter. Yet Elena knew this was just the opening salvo. The true test was yet to come. Jalen, she said quietly, prepare for anything. They've just realized they're facing more than easy prey. The nebula's swirling shadows hid many dangers, but Captain Elena Reyes was ready to meet them head-on. The battle erupted with sudden, violent intensity. The USS Dauntless shuddered as enemy plasma lanced through the void, striking shields in sharp, sizzling bursts. Captain Elena Reyes gripped the edge of the command chair, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where red blips darted dangerously close to the convoy. Enemy frigate closing in on the port flank, Lieutenant Jalen warned. They're trying to isolate the freighters. Elena's voice was calm but resolute. Divert all firepower to intercept. Fighters scramble, cover that vector. We cannot lose those supplies. On the fighter deck, pilots responded instantly. Sleek interceptors roared from their bays, weaving through the dense nebula clouds with practiced agility. The cacophony of laser fire, the crackle of communications, and the occasional hull warning melded into a tense symphony of combat. Back on the bridge, Elena studied the enemy's approach. The Zarkoth favored direct, overwhelming assaults, relying on superior numbers and heavy firepower. But the Dauntless had something they lacked: unpredictability. Jalen, initiate the drone swarms. We'll hit their formation's weak points. Her tone was sharp, a weapon itself. Yes, Captain. The room hummed with energy as drone bays opened, releasing hundreds of micro-drones that shimmered like a metallic storm. They swarmed into the nebula, darting between gas clouds and asteroids, invisible predators in the haze. The drones struck swiftly. Small plasma bursts flared across Zarkoth's shields, targeting sensor arrays and weapon nodes. The enemy vessels faltered, their tight formation breaking under the assault. Drone swarm effective, Jalen reported. Enemy Frigate 3 is disengaging. Elena allowed herself a brief nod of approval but did not relax. Maintain pressure. Fighters, form up around the convoy. Suddenly, the Dauntless lurched violently. The hull groaned. Impact aft! Direct hit! The damage control officer's voice cracked through the calm. Shields down to 30% on the starboard side, Jalen called out, eyes glued to the readings. Elena's jaw tightened. Divert power from engines to shields. Helm, evasive maneuvers, full thrusters, zigzag through the nebula. The helmsman adjusted course, the ship banking sharply through drifting debris. The battle became a deadly dance, laser fire slicing through the darkness, punctuated by explosions and the flare of shield overloads. Enemy destroyer approaching at Vector 720, Jalen announced. They're targeting our fighters. Elena's mind raced. The Zarketh sought to cripple their aerial support to isolate the convoy. Gunner teams, focus fire on that destroyer. Fighters, protect each other. No ship left exposed. Over comms, fighter squadron leader Captain Rena's voice cut through. Dauntless, this is Raptor 1. We're holding formation but taking heavy fire. Requesting support. Hang tight, Raptor 1. Drone swarms are on their flanks. Keep them engaged, Elena responded. The pilots' dogfights flared against the nebula's shifting light, weaving in and out of cover, dodging plasma bolts and debris. Each maneuver was a gamble, and each gamble was a testament to human grit. On the bridge, Elena kept her cool. Every alert was a potential disaster, every decision a knife-edge balance. Hull breach detected in engineering, the damage control officer reported. Life support at risk in Section 5. Elena's voice hardened. Seal off affected compartments. Med teams stand by for casualties. Behind her, the bridge crew worked frantically, rerouting power, patching breaches. The Dauntless was bleeding but refusing to fall. Captain, Zarketh forces are regrouping for a second assault, Jalen warned. Their destroyers are coordinating a concentrated strike. Elena glanced at the tactical map, noting their compressed formation. We need to disrupt their coordination. Jalen, electronic warfare teams, jam their comms. I want confusion on their bridge. Minutes later, the Dauntless electronic countermeasures hummed through the comms channels. Zarketh's ships struggled to maintain formation, their responses delayed, their attacks uncoordinated. Good work, Elena said, eyes narrowing. Now, counterattack with everything we've got. The Dauntless fired its main batteries, volleys of plasma shells ripping through enemy shields. Fighters pressed the assault, strafing vulnerable hulls. The nebula lit with fire and shadow, a deadly storm of technology and will. Captain, Jalen said urgently, the convoy's lead freighter has sustained critical damage. They're dropping out of formation. Elena's stomach clenched. Divert fighters to cover that freighter. No ship left behind. Raptor squadron to freighter escort. Hold the line, came the rapid response. The battle's tide began to shift. The Zarketh, expecting an easy kill, found themselves on the defensive. Enemy destroyer down, Jalen announced, a rare note of triumph. But victory came at a cost. The Dauntless systems were faltering, its shields flickered precariously. Captain, we're sustaining critical damage. Hull integrity falling to 60%. The damage control officer warned. Elena met the gaze of her crew. Prepare for emergency repairs. Keep the ship fighting. Suddenly, a sharp alert cut through the din. Incoming missile salvo detected, the weapons officer shouted. Evasive maneuvers. Deploy countermeasures. Elena ordered immediately. The ship shook as missiles detonated nearby, shield generators straining under the barrage. The crew's focus never wavered, responding to each threat with synchronized precision. Captain, Jalen said, voice tense. Our drone swarms are running low on energy. Elena made a swift decision. Recall the drones. Conserve resources for the next phase. The drones retreated, slipping back into the dauntless bays as the fight raged on. Despite the damage, the human fleet's resolve grew stronger. Their fighters pressed harder, coordinated strikes cutting deep into the Zarketh lines. The convoy, battered but intact, began to regroup. Enemy forces retreating, Jalen reported, relief barely masking his exhaustion. Zarketh fleet is withdrawing toward the nebula's outer edge. Elena allowed herself a moment's respite. Excellent. But this is far from over. The bridge quieted as the immediate threat faded, tension easing but never gone. Elena addressed her crew with quiet authority. We showed them our mettle today. They thought they faced easy prey. They learned otherwise. Her words were met with nods and resolute eyes. But Elena knew the battle was only the first act in a larger war. The Zarkatha's pride would demand retribution, and humanity's survival would depend on strength, strategy, and unbreakable will. Set course for forward base. We need repairs and reinforcements, she ordered. And prepare for what comes next. As the Dauntless limped through the nebula's shifting shadows, Elena's mind was already planning the next move. The Zarkath had made a grave mistake, and the price they would pay was only just beginning to reveal itself. The USS Dauntless drifted into the repair docks of Outpost Athena, a forward human base carved into an asteroid near the edge of the outer rim. The stars outside were distant pinpricks against the black, but inside, the ship buzzed with urgent activity, engineers swarming over hull breaches, medics tending to the wounded, and commanders convening in conference rooms thick with tension. Captain Elena Reyes stood before a holographic star map in the briefing chamber, her hands clenched at her sides. Around her, fleet officers debated the recent engagement with a mixture of concern and doubt. Captain, Admiral Harron said, folding his arms, your aggressive tactics certainly saved the convoy, but at what cost? The Dauntless is barely operational, and several escorts were lost. Some argue we should avoid provoking the Zarkath further. Elena met his gaze without hesitation. Admiral, if we don't push back now, they'll only grow bolder. The Outer Rim colonies depend on us to hold this line. Commander Voss chimed in. Caution has served us well in the past. We can negotiate, avoid open conflict until we're stronger. Elena's voice sharpened. Diplomacy with a species that sees us as inferior is a luxury we may not have. The Zarkath attacked first. Our duty is to defend humanity's future, not wait to be crushed. A murmur rippled through the room. The fleet was divided, uncertainty creeping into their ranks. Elena felt the weight of leadership heavier than ever. After the meeting, she retreated to her quarters, the sterile walls a stark contrast to the storm inside her mind. She poured herself a cup of synth coffee and stared out the viewport at the nebula's distant glow. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Lieutenant Jalen's face appeared on the comm screen, his expression grim. Captain, intelligence reports indicate the Zarkath are mobilizing a larger force. They're preparing for a full-scale assault on the Outer Rim's core systems. Elena's heart tightened. How soon? Days, maybe hours? We intercepted their communications, but it's heavily encrypted. She set the cup down, steadying her voice. Assemble the senior staff. We need to prepare, offense and defense. Later, in the war room, Elena laid out her plan. The hologram showed the Outer Rim star systems, highlighted in red where the Zarkath threatened. We cannot wait for them to strike first, she said, pointing. We take the fight to them. Disrupt their supply lines, weaken their fleet before they reach human worlds. Fleet commanders exchanged skeptical looks. Such a plan risks overextension, Admiral Harron warned. If we fail, the consequences could be catastrophic. Elena nodded. I understand the risks. But hesitation will cost us more. Commander Voss sighed, but nodded reluctantly. If anyone can pull it off, it's you, Captain. The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Elena's crew worked tirelessly, repairing the Dauntless, recalibrating weapons, and training relentlessly. Yet beneath the discipline, unease simmered. The looming battle would test not only ships and technology but the resolve of every soul. One evening, as Elena walked the corridors, she paused by the medical bay. A young technician, pale and weary, looked up. How are they holding up? Elena asked softly. The technician shrugged. Some scared. Others angry. But they trust you, Captain. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. Trust was earned in blood and fire. Across the void, General Vrax Malcor convened his own council aboard the Zarkath flagship. His jagged visage was shadowed by flickering tactical displays. The humans are persistent, Vrax growled. Their defiance is an insult. His second-in-command, a cold-eyed lieutenant, spoke. They are inferior, but dangerous because of their unpredictability. Vraxa's eyes narrowed. Then we shall teach them order and discipline. Crush their fleets. End this farce. Back on the Dauntless, Elena reviewed the intercepted transmission from Vraxa's command. His arrogance was palpable, his threats thinly veiled beneath disdain. She shared the message with Jalen. They think strength is sheer force. They don't understand human tenacity. Jalen smiled faintly. That's our advantage. We fight smarter, not just harder. Elena leaned back, determination hardening. Then we'll make them pay for every mistake. Days later, in a rare moment of calm before the storm, Elena found herself reflecting on her past, her journey from a cadet on a backwater colony to captain of one of humanity's most formidable ships. The loss of comrades, the sacrifices made, all led to this moment. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lieutenant Jalen entered, carrying data pads. Captain, Fleet Command wants a status update before final orders. Elena nodded. Let's give them confidence. In the briefing, Elena spoke plainly. The Zarkas see us as a minor threat. They underestimate our resolve. We'll exploit that. We have technology, tactics, and above all, the will to survive. Admiral Heron studied her carefully. Your confidence is reassuring. Just remember, the lives of thousands depend on your decisions. Elena's gaze was steady. I don't take that lightly. But in war, hesitation can be deadlier than the enemy. After the briefing, she returned to the bridge, her crew readying for what lay ahead. As the Dauntless slipped away from Outpost Athena, its engines humming with renewed strength, Elena allowed herself a brief, grim smile. The price of hubris was high, both for her enemies and for humanity. But she was prepared to pay it. The war was only beginning. The asteroid belt loomed ahead, a tangled labyrinth of jagged rock and drifting debris. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the USS Dauntless, her eyes tracing the intricate formations on the tactical display. This was the stage for the decisive confrontation, human fleet against the Zarka strike force, and the fate of the Outer Rim hung in the balance. Scanners picking up enemy fleet, Captain, Lieutenant Jalen reported. They're larger than we anticipated, 3 destroyers, 6 frigates, and multiple support vessels. Elena's jaw tightened. They want to make sure we don't survive this. Fleet is in position, ready on your command. Elena inhaled deeply. This is it. All units prepare for ambush. Use the asteroid field for cover. Electronic warfare teams, jam their sensors and communications. Fighters stay sharp. This battle will test every skill we have. The fleet slipped into the shadows of the asteroid belt, silent hunters awaiting the strike. The nebula's faint glow barely penetrated the rocky maze, hiding human ships from prying Zarkut sensors. Suddenly, the silence shattered as enemy vessels advanced, their weapons charging. The Zarkuth expected an easy kill, bold, direct, and brutal. No, Elena commanded. From hidden positions, the human fleet sprang forward. Laser batteries flared, cutting arcs of light through the darkness. Fighter squadrons surged, weaving between rocks and blasting at exposed enemy hulls. Enemy destroyer hit, shields failing, Jalen announced, voice urgent. The Dauntless fired coordinated volleys, exploiting weak points. Small drone swarms darted through the chaos, disrupting enemy targeting systems and striking critical subsystems. Captain, electronic jamming is holding. Zarkuth comms are garbled, coordination faltering. Elena allowed herself a brief nod. Keep it that way. The Zarkuth, caught in the asteroid's embrace and bombarded from all sides, faltered. Their attacks became erratic, desperate. On the bridge, tension crackled like electricity. Elena's crew moved with precision, every command executed flawlessly. The difference between victory and disaster was razor-thin. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Boarding pods detected, Captain! Zarkuth attempting to breach the Dauntless. The security officer's voice was sharp. Elena's eyes narrowed. Seal all bulkheads. Security teams to repel boarders. The ship shuddered as the pods latched on and breach hatches tore open. Combat teams engaged fierce melee battles in the corridors, laser pistols firing, blades flashing. The Dauntless became a battleground inside and out. Elena remained on the bridge, coordinating defense and offense simultaneously. Captain, fighter squadron leader reports multiple enemy vessels disabled or retreating, Jalen said, a rare note of triumph in his voice. Good. Push forward. Target the flagship. As the fleet closed in on the Zarkuth flagship, Elena prepared for the final strike. Prepare boarding party, she ordered. I want that ship captured or destroyed. A squadron of Marines equipped with powered armor readied themselves in the launch bay. Elena watched the deployment feed, feeling the familiar surge of resolve. Meanwhile, aboard the Zarkuth flagship, General Vrax Malcor paced his bridge, fury etched across his features. They fight with reckless abandon, he spat. But their defiance ends here. Vrax's eyes locked on the approaching human boarding pods. Deploy countermeasures. Crush them. The boarding pods crashed into the hull. Marines poured out, clashing with Zarkuth defenders. The fight was brutal and close quarters. Grunts and growls mixed with gunfire and the clash of blades. Back on the Dauntless Bridge, Elena's calm crackled. Captain, boarding party has secured the main reactor. They're holding but need backup. Elena's voice was steady. Reinforcements en route. Hold your ground. Minutes stretched like hours as the boarding teams fought for control. Finally, a broadcast interrupted the chaos, a distorted message from General Vrax himself. Elena Reyes. His voice cold and venomous. You have defied the might of the Zarkuth. Surrender now, and your crew may live. Elena responded without hesitation. We fight for humanity's future. Surrender is not an option. The transmission ended. The battle resumed with renewed fury. On the Dauntless, systems operators worked frantically to stabilize the ship, which groaned under damage from the boarding assault and enemy fire. Captain, shields at 20%. Weapons systems degrading. Elena's mind raced. Divert all remaining power to weapons. Target their engines. Understood. The human fleet's coordinated strike began to take its toll. The Zarkuth flagship shuddered as engines flared and weapons went dark. Flagship crippled, Jalen announced. Sensing defeat, the remaining Zarkuth vessels began to retreat, scattering into the void. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Pursuit is secondary. Focus on securing the flagship and protecting our wounded. The boarding party sent back images of the damaged bridge, now under human control. General Vrax was nowhere to be found. In the quiet moments after the storm, Elena gathered her senior officers. We've dealt a heavy blow. The outer rim is safe, for now. Jalen smiled, exhausted but proud. They underestimated us from the start. Elena's gaze turned toward the stars outside the viewport. And they'll remember that mistake. The cost had been steep, losses endured, scars earned, but humanity's spirit had endured, stronger than ever. As the Dauntless limped through the battered asteroid field, its crew tended to the wounded, repaired the broken, and prepared for the uncertain future ahead. Elena stood on the bridge a moment longer, silent among the stars. This victory was more than survival, it was a declaration. Humanity was here to stay. And no enemy, no matter how powerful, would ever make them forget it.